I have two sons, Ryan, 25, and Jack, 21. Their mother passed away when they were younger, and it's been just the three of us for most of their lives. I've always worked hard to give them both the best shot at a good life. I've saved what I could over the years, and part of that meant building a college fund for Jack. He's always been the more academic one, the kind of kid who plans ahead and works hard. Ryan, on the other hand, has always been more carefree, never really interested in school, and has been working random jobs trying to figure things out. I had saved around $60,000 for Jack's college fund. He's been using that money for his tuition and other school expenses. I've been proud of how responsible he's been with it, and I always believed he would put it to good use to secure a bright future. Ryan, on the other hand, didn't go to college, and while I didn't save up a specific fund for him, I've supported him in other ways over the years. That's just the background, but the real story is about what happened recently, and it's pretty insane. A few months ago, Ryan came to me with some big news. His fiancée, Katie, was pregnant. They'd been together for about a year, and while I had some reservations about their relationship, I tried to be supportive. Ryan was ecstatic about the baby, though it was clear they weren't financially prepared. They were living in a small apartment, and with the baby on the way, they were in no position to raise a child comfortably. Ryan didn't ask for help outright, but I could see he was struggling to figure out how they were going to make ends meet. The news of the pregnancy was a shock, but what happened next was even worse. One night, I overheard a heated argument between Jack and Ryan. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but what I heard froze me in place. Ryan was accusing Jack of having an affair with Katie. At first, I thought it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe tempers were flaring, and Ryan was being paranoid. But then Jack admitted it. Jack and Katie had been having an affair behind Ryan's back. Worse yet, Jack wasn't just involved. He was the real father of the baby. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My younger son had betrayed his brother, and Katie had been lying to Ryan the entire time. It was like my world was spinning out of control. After that night, everything exploded. Ryan was heartbroken and furious, understandably so. He immediately broke off his engagement with Katie, but the damage was already done. Ryan had been ready to become a father, and now, not only was his fiancée having another man's child, but that man was his own brother. Katie confirmed it all. She admitted to having an affair with Jack and confessed that Jack was indeed the real father of the baby. The truth hit all of us like a sledgehammer. Ryan moved out of their apartment and crashed at a friend's place. He was emotionally wrecked, and even though the relationship with Katie was over, the situation was complicated because there was still a baby on the way. Ryan had gotten attached to the idea of being a father, but it wasn't his child. Jack, for his part, was full of apologies, but his actions had fractured our family. He admitted to the affair, but claimed he never intended to hurt Ryan. He was overwhelmed by guilt and tried to make amends, but Ryan was in no place to forgive him, and honestly, I wasn't either. Here's where I might have become the a-hole. As Ryan tried to pick up the pieces of his life, it became clear that he was in financial trouble. The breakup with Katie had left him homeless, and he was struggling to find a place to live while dealing with the emotional fallout. He was completely devastated and didn't know how to move forward. He had lost his fiancée, the baby he thought was his, and his sense of stability, all in one swoop. I could see how badly Ryan was hurting. He had no stability and nowhere to go. Meanwhile, Jack still had his college fund intact and was continuing with his education as if nothing had changed. I couldn't shake the feeling that Jack had caused all of this mess. He had betrayed his brother and now had the responsibility of a child on the way, while Ryan was left with nothing. So, I made a decision. I took the remainder of Jack's college fund, about $45,000 of it, and gave it to Ryan. I told Ryan to use the money to buy himself a house and start over, somewhere he could have stability while figuring out how to move forward. I felt like Jack had created this entire disaster, and now Ryan was paying the price. Meanwhile, Jack still had opportunities ahead of him. When I told Jack what I had done, he was furious. He said the money had been promised to him, that he'd earned it by being responsible, and that I was punishing him for something that had already caused him enough guilt. He claimed that taking the college fund wasn't going to fix anything between him and Ryan, and that I was throwing away his future because of one mistake. But I saw it differently. Jack had a lot going for him. He's smart, resourceful, and can still figure out a way to complete his education. Ryan, on the other hand, had nothing left. He was emotionally shattered and financially wrecked, and I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Now, I'm stuck in the middle of this mess, questioning whether I did the right thing. Jack and I haven't spoken much since I gave Ryan the money. He's hurt and feels betrayed. He said that he already feels like he's lost everything: his brother's trust, his future with Katie, and now the financial support I had promised him. He's made it clear that he thinks I'm favoring Ryan. Ryan, meanwhile, is trying to rebuild his life, but even he feels conflicted about taking Jack's college fund. He's grateful for the help, but he knows that it's come at a cost. He's still dealing with the emotional wreckage of everything that's happened, and the money is only a band-aid for a deeper wound. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for taking Jack's college fund and giving it to Ryan, after finding out Jack was having an affair with Ryan's fiancée and is the real father of her baby? Not the a-hole. What a nightmare situation. But honestly, Jack kind of dug his own grave here. He betrayed his brother in one of the worst ways possible. He's lucky you didn't kick him out entirely. I can't imagine the emotional fallout Ryan must be dealing with, and giving him the money to find stability was the right call. Jack's education is important, but he caused this mess. He should face some consequences. It sucks for everyone, but I think you did what you had to do as a father. You're the a-hole. Look, I understand why you're angry at Jack, but using his college fund for Ryan feels like a huge overreaction. This was money Jack was counting on for his future, and now he's been left with nothing. Sure, he made a terrible mistake, but taking away his education feels like you're destroying his future to make up for Ryan's pain. Two wrongs don't make a right. You should have found a different way to support Ryan without punishing Jack like this. Everyone sucks here. Jack obviously made a horrible choice, but you handling this by taking away his college fund wasn't fair either. Both of your sons are suffering, and this decision seems like it's only making things worse. Instead of throwing money at the problem, you should have tried to get everyone into therapy, or at least talk through the situation. Now you've likely alienated Jack for good, and the family is even more fractured.
So I, male 30, have been with my boyfriend, male 34, for 2 years. My mother is very homophobic and basically cut me out when she found out I was bi, back when I first finished college. All my life she would try to control me. She would try to control what I wear, who I hang out with, only to fit her definition of the perfect son. For example, I like to knit, and she would throw away all my knitting accessories because it wasn't a hobby for boys. I always told her it's her own fault for sending me to an all-boys school and that I had eyes. My siblings have always been supportive of my lifestyle, and we're very close. My older brother is getting married to his girlfriend of 5 years, and they will get married in July 2022. His fiancée is awesome, but her family is also very homophobic. Her mother and mine get along very well, and do many activities together. I have gone LC with my mother over the years. I love my brother's fiancée, but she has a tendency of trying to please everyone around her, which means that when I got my invitation for the wedding, lo and behold, it was the only one with no +1. At first, I thought it was a mistake, so I contacted his fiancée, since I knew she was the one taking care of the guest list and the RSVP. And she told me that they had to cut down the number of invitations because of pandemic. But I checked with my siblings, and all of them got a +1. This really upset me and my boyfriend, since he is very close to my brother. They went to uni together. I contacted my brother, who of course had no idea that I didn't have a +1, and told me he'd take care of it. I then received a bunch of text messages from my sister-in-law, berating me for talking to my brother, and that I should have just taken the one invitation. She told me she did this to prevent any problems with me and her side of the family, and my mother. She also told me that she didn't want me and my boyfriend to be the center of attention at her own wedding. She told me that she'll give me the +1, but that I'll be ruining her wedding. I've talked to friends and my siblings, and they're mostly on my side. But some have told me that it's her wedding, and that she has the right to invite who she wants. I think I might be the a-hole, because my mother's subtle homophobic remarks don't affect me anymore. But I don't think it'll be fair to let my boyfriend be subjected to them, and her family's homophobia, and that it is indeed her own wedding. Not the a-hole. OP, please show your brother the text she sent. He sounds like a very caring person, who loves his little brother and his boyfriend. I don't think you would want to marry someone who would treat you like this. Edit. I noticed some of you questioning my use of the word lifestyle. And honestly, it's how I've always referred to my life. It's how my mother always referred to my life growing up, and it stuck with me. I feel like it's something I internalized, but I see how it can be detrimental to our identity. Edit 2. I haven't shown my brother the texts yet. My boyfriend and him are supposed to have a gaming night in a couple days. My boyfriend and I discussed what we should do, and we'll talk to him after. I think you're right, and that I should show him her texts. Update. After my boyfriend and my brother had their gaming night, my boyfriend called me over to our gaming room, and we talked to my brother. We told him we both loved him, but decided not to attend the wedding. My brother was obviously upset, until I showed the advice of many of you guys and showed my brother my future sister-in-law's texts. To say he was livid was an understatement. He actually called up my sister-in-law in front of us and demanded that she apologize to both me and my boyfriend. She did, but defended what she did and explained her reasons to my brother, the same reasons she gave me when I first confronted her. He tried to argue with her, but she told him that she'd talk to him once he came back home, and hung up. It took some time, but my boyfriend was able to calm him down, and we talked about everything. He told us he completely understands if we decided not to attend, and that he would never hold it against us, even though he would love for us to attend. He told us he would never want us to degrade ourselves just for his fiance's happiness. He ended up spending the night at our house because I didn't want him driving when this upset. In the end, we couldn't sleep, and we talked almost all night. He told me that he sees my sister-in-law in a new light now, since he feels like her family will have too much power over their relationship. Our mother knows she doesn't have that kind of power over us, but she's scared that his mother-in-law would try to control his future wife. In the end, he told me that maybe he didn't want to attend his own wedding. I told him to get some rest and to really think about it before doing anything reckless. He slept until 1 p.m. and then went back home. We got a text a few days later telling us the wedding was officially on a hiatus and that my brother and his fiancée are on a break. We told him that he could move in with us for now if he needed space from his fiancée, and he agreed. In the end, both my boyfriend and my brother told me I did the right thing by showing him the texts, because he deserved to know who he was about to marry. In June 2015, my brother and I found out that my mother's uncle, who had passed away only a few years before his wife, had left my brother and I his share of their estate. This includes their Brooklyn home, as well as any remaining funds, after all others on the will have been paid, as well as debts and outstanding taxes. The estate is split 3 ways, between myself, my brother, and the aunt's nephew. The estate attorneys have informed us that the entire estate was worth about $3 million USD. My brother and I each received an initial payout of $150,000 in July. The attorneys are waiting to pay taxes, debts, etc., to disperse any more funds. The estate attorneys accidentally sent our checks to our parents' house, and this is where things got bad. My parents currently owe the IRS about $1,300,000 USD. This is due to 10 years of fees, accumulating interest, and basically ignoring paying the IRS. My mother also spent 2.5 years in prison for this case. Whether or not she is guilty, we can say for another day. In June 2016, my parents, who found out the value of our uncle's home, proposed a loan for my brother and I. My brother and I would pay their $1,300,000 bill with the inheritance, and we would get the sum back when they are gone. How morbid, right? We said we would research our options, but reminded them that we would do everything we can moving forward to make sure they have a roof over their heads, basic needs, and if they want to travel into their retirement, we would cover that as well. Come July, when the check showed up at their house, I drove down to their home to have a conversation with them about this with my brother on the phone. I had consulted with an attorney, and in sum, his advice was, do not get involved in this with your family. If they take a loan, you will have to be ready to go so far as to repossess their home. If you gift the money, you will need to work with a team of attorneys and accountants to make sure you are covered, and even then, the money will be all gone. My parents came back with ideas like, well, if we just say it's a loan, which I quickly explained is not something I am interested in getting involved in. This turned into my dad speaking down to us essentially in my face, screaming and rolling his eyes. My mother called me afterwards and told me that my dad was not going to hide his feelings about me after the incident for my wedding. After the incident for my wedding in September, and she distanced herself as well. They came to my wedding, and things were about as awkward as expected. I could not get a hold of them before my wedding. They would not answer calls or return them. When they found out that I had said hello to my future mother-in-law before them, it got much worse. I was all around very hurt. I was ready to put everything aside and get on with the wedding, and I thought they might be excited for me. My husband and I paid for our entire wedding. In speaking with my mother afterwards, she was upset about X, Y, and Z, that she was a guest at her daughter's wedding. The photographer didn't get the picture she wanted. She never told me this until afterwards. And basically, things didn't go the way she wanted. I was very hurt, but again, I was ready to move on. Now, I think her hurt may have been her putting her guilt on me. She acknowledged my father, her husband, owed me a few apologies at this point, and she was not willing to challenge him on it. After our honeymoon, my parents called to get to business. They had decided that they would take the $150,000 USD from each of us, $300,000 total, and with the remaining balance on their debt, they would take a loan from the bank on properties they have, over $1 million USD worth. This would allow them to pay the IRS, and they would take the remaining inheritance when it came through. I was a bit taken aback, as this went from a loan to this is the way it's going to go. This plan made me extremely uncomfortable. The attorneys are withholding that money for outstanding debts and taxes. Even if I was willing to give every dime to them after the way I have been treated, it's a huge risk. What if nothing else comes through, or nothing at all? I told him I wanted to consult an attorney, and he was again livid. Come October, they have taxes due. My mom calls my brother on a Monday morning and says she got an extension on her taxes from last year. She thought she was getting a refund, but she owes them $8,000 USD. She needs the money now. We ask her how this happens, and she lets us know we owe her money from his inheritance, so we need to pay it. Worn out and feeling very sorry for them at this point, we both go to the bank and sent her $4,000 USD. No thank you was received. Come the next week, we get a call from both of my parents. My dad starts the conversation with, "This is going to be hard because we have always been proud of you. But we are no longer, and we may not be speaking much moving forward." 2 hours later and nothing has changed. The last plan to get a loan from the bank was not approved for them. So now, the idea is that my brother and I will take out a loan on the amount of the inheritance for their debt. We both explain once again that this is going to be a very high interest rate loan. Research after the call looks to be about 15% plus. That my brother and I cannot risk bankruptcies for this plan if the money never did come through, and that if they sell their properties, they will be out of debt with the IRS, and we can help them with expenses afterwards. We are told, essentially, it should be their money, and so anything else is our moral failing. We try to provide options for how this money can help all of us as a family. My brother and I put ourselves through school and have student loans we would like to pay off, and still be able to help my parents without throwing away a large sum to essentially a payday loan. Again, my dad is livid, and the conversation ends. We have not spoken since. At this point, I am strong enough to say no. I will not risk our future for a $500,000 USD plus loan on a sum of money that may or may not come through. I am hurt that they would propose that, understanding the desperate situation that they are in. And even more so, I am hurt that they would let this destroy our relationship. I know we will never be as close as we were, but my brother and my parents are my only family. I understand that my hands are tied, and I wish that they did too. But to be honest, after the way I've been treated, they could not even put their jealousy aside for my wedding. I am less and less inclined to help. That being said, the holidays are coming up, and they are my parents. Do I reach out? What do I do? Do I let these holidays pass and hope that they will eventually see that they can pay their debts and my brother and I can help them if they need in the future? Every time we speak to my father, he tells us to reach out and understand how immoral we are being. So here I am asking for input. I tried to make this as impartial as possible, but it is hard. Okay, in my honest opinion, you are being massively manipulated by some selfish, heartless parents. I would never give up my inheritance because they put themselves in debt. This situation is of their own making, and you owe them nothing. Note that there is a reason you were left that money. Likely because the uncle knew they are irresponsible people. I would cut off contact with them for a while because no good is coming from it. I would also communicate this position to my brother. Note, left alone, I doubt the IRS will ever get that money, nor will your parents pay it back. Of course, they will threaten and pressure you, but if your parents declare bankruptcy, the only thing they, IRS, can do is threaten criminal charges in a trial by jury, which they have a low probability of winning if your parents are not mobsters. Therefore, why should you pay good money, money that can have an important positive impact on your life, to partially pay off your parents' debt, when 10 years from now, they may just be right back in the same position? Better to let them pay the ferryman right now. Tough love. Don't give in. I have a pretty strained relationship with my husband's mom, and we are pretty low contact as of right now. That wasn't a decision we specifically made to punish her. Just both sides stopped reaching out, and as a result, she was not at all involved in wedding planning. We got married recently, and the rehearsal dinner was the first time we'd seen her in a while. She was polite, but was pretty awkward. Then, during the wedding reception, they all had their backs to me and didn't know I was there. I heard her ask her boyfriend if he was going to do anything stupid. She did not sound like she was encouraging him, but like you better not. He laughed and said, "I don't know. I hate these people so much." Mother-in-law's friend said it would be so romantic if he destroyed the wedding. Mother-in-law told him he better not, though she was laughing. He then gave her his hand and was like, "See, I'm shaking. I hate these people so much." At this point, I made my presence known and asked if he was actually going to ruin the wedding. He said of course not, but I shouldn't act surprised that he hates me, and he didn't think it was some big secret that he has a huge problem with us. I asked why was he even there then, and he said because mother-in-law asked him to be there, but I can't really think he is there for me. I asked him to leave, and he said that they were just joking, and he wouldn't do anything. I told him again to leave, and mother-in-law was like, "Really?" and walked out after him. And the friend ran out too. I don't know if I was the a-hole, because I don't actually think he would do it. On one hand, I don't want to be worried, but on the other hand, people joke around, and most people don't have the balls to do stuff like that. I feel bad that my husband didn't get to have his mom at his wedding. He still misses her. I think deep down she misses him. But to be fair, he didn't want to invite her boyfriend anyway, but knew she wouldn't come without him. Not the a-hole. He hated you so much that he couldn't shut up about it at your wedding. He hated you so much that he joked about ruining your wedding in a way that didn't sound like a joke. When you confronted him about it, he doubled down on how much he hated you, at which point he was no longer entitled to your hospitality. Because people who accept an invitation to an event also accept that certain behavior is expected. Your mother-in-law thought it was funny that he spoke about you that way, and thought it was a funny idea that he might wreck your event in some fashion. So even though you don't think he would have actually done something, both of them basically spit on your invitation. They needed to leave. Your mother-in-law was at the wedding, which was more than she deserved. Her lack of class and her terrible taste in men meant that she didn't get to enjoy the reception. Good for you.